It was just another ordinary Tuesday morning. I was sitting in the company's medical office, an annual health check I nearly canceled due to a pile of meetings. Then the senior doctor, an old man with tired eyes, walked in holding a file. "Matthew, we need to talk in private." I swallowed hard. My heart didn't race. It sank like something had just quietly dropped into a bottomless well. "We found an abnormal mass in your pancreas," he said. His voice didn't rise or fall. It was calm, steady, like he was reading a prophecy already written. "We performed a biopsy. I'm sorry, it's cancer. Early stage, fortunately, but it requires treatment, soon. Chemotherapy, maybe surgery, but definitely not delay." I just nodded. I said nothing, not a single question, no denial. I walked out of the room like a shadow, clutching the medical report sealed carefully in a clear plastic folder. It looked like a death sentence, framed beautifully. I got home at 7 p.m. The house was brightly lit. Pop music echoed from the living room. My wife, Sophia, was live streaming her unboxing of a luxury skincare line from France. Her eyes sparkled like a stage light. Her laughter rang like silver bells. No one asked why I was late. No one asked why I didn't eat dinner. I went into my study, opened the second drawer from the top. Right beside the utility bills and our savings books was the diagnosis: pancreatic cancer, early stage. I slid it in, closed the drawer, locked it. Then I turned off the light and sat in the dark. My name is Matthew Reynolds. I'm a 43-year-old man living in the suburbs north of San Diego, California. People often call me the model man. Stable job, beautiful wife, 2 lovely children, a white fenced house like something from a brochure. I used to believe that was enough, that it was fulfillment. Until that day, I began a war, a silent war, alone. I told no one. I still got up at 6 a.m., drove the kids to school. I still wore a suit and tie, still sat in boardroom meetings. I still kissed Sophia goodbye on the cheek before leaving the house, though her lips were as cold as a glass of champagne left too long in the fridge. But something inside me had cracked. Each night, while she spritzed perfume and took OTD selfies for Instagram, I lay in the dark, listening to my heartbeat and imagining that tumor growing quietly like a beast gnawing at my insides. I searched online, took notes on new treatments. I cut out sugar, gave up red meat, started meditating at 5 a.m. before anyone woke up. No one noticed. No one saw I lost nearly 7 pounds in 2 weeks. No one noticed my skin turning grayish by the day. I had once been the family's pillar, a great oak that refused to fall. But now I was a man carrying a death sentence, surrounded by a family too busy to see it. Sophia, my wife, was the kind of woman who turned heads the moment she walked into a room. Tall, slender, golden-haired, with soft waves, skin like porcelain, and a wardrobe that always looked straight off a Paris runway. Even at home, she never dressed down. Silk robes, Chanel perfume, bold red lipstick, her bare minimum. We met at a corporate event. She was a model for a luxury tech product campaign. I was the engineering director behind it all, the guy no one noticed. I fell for her immediately, and 6 months later, I married her, like a man at the height of his career, believing love and effort could build anything. I was wrong. Sophia never stepped foot in the kitchen. She had no idea what grade our kids were in, who their teachers were, what food they liked, or what they feared at night. All that she left to Emma, our housekeeper. She lived in a world of gloss and brand names, floating between La Jolla champagne parties and influencer group chats where she flaunted her latest Chanel bag, Dior heels, or $1,000 skincare routine. And me? I kept earning. I kept providing. I kept believing if she felt secure enough, she'd love me back. But greed has no ceiling, especially the greed that hides behind a perfect smile. When I began to slow down, when the fatigue took over my evenings, when I quietly withdrew from big work projects to focus on my treatment, things changed. "You're getting lazy," she muttered one night when I declined another social event. I gave her a tired smile. "I just need some rest." "You need rest? Or are you just not making enough anymore?" She said it without even looking up from her phone. Her tone was soft, but it cut deeper than any scream. The complaints began dripping in like poison. My card got declined while buying Leona's birthday watch. I was mortified. "Do you know how many times I've had to fake a smile when my friends ask how your business is doing? I can't keep cutting back when all my friends are living like queens." Every time I reached for her hand, she pulled it away. Every time I said, "We need to talk," she turned or buried herself in her phone. Sophia never asked why I was losing weight. She never asked why I barely ate. She never asked why I stopped attending company events. She didn't ask because she didn't care. All she saw was a dwindling balance sheet. One night, while I sat in the dark of my study, I heard her laughter echo from the living room, FaceTiming her girls, flashing skincare and designer labels, and I realized this woman had never loved me. She loved what I could provide. When I was a gold mine, she was a muse. But now, as a sick man with diminishing income, I was a liability. Her cruelty didn't come from violence or rage. It came from silence, from indifference, from the chilling efficiency of someone who no longer needed to pretend. That night, San Diego was draped in quiet rain, not a storm, just a persistent drizzle, like a background melody to something slowly breaking. I sat in my car inside the garage for nearly 2 hours. I couldn't bring myself to go inside. Sophia texted me once, "I need to book a spa for tomorrow morning. What's wrong with the card?" No, "Where are you?" No, "Are you okay?" Just a card. Just money. I leaned my head back against the headrest, listening to the soft rhythm of rain tapping on the windshield, like the ticking of a bomb that had already gone off. What have I been living for all these years? Had I become nothing more than a talking credit card, a shadow performing husband duties in the backdrop of a staged life? At dawn, while everyone else was asleep, I quietly packed a few things into an old canvas bag. No suitcase, no leather briefcase, just essentials. Meds, a coat, a journal, and a photocopy of my cancer diagnosis. I left a single handwritten note on the dining table. I need some quiet to remember what I ever lived for. Then I drove. No destination, no farewell. Just the overwhelming urge to escape the house that had turned into a stage set. Empty, lifeless, and scripted. I took Highway 101 north along the Pacific. The ocean wind carried the scent of salt and damp seaweed, an odd mix of decay and renewal. 3 hours later, I stopped in a quiet town called Cambria, tucked between the forest and the sea. Cobblestone streets, weathered wooden homes, a stone chapel, and a small coffee shop where people still addressed each other by name. I rented a small cabin on a hillside, 1 bedroom, a modest kitchen, and a window facing the waves. No designer furniture, no glowing screens, just me. Each morning I woke up to birdsong and ocean mist. I walked along the shore, sat in front of the chapel listening to its old bell chime on the hour. The old priest always greeted me with a gentle smile. He never asked why I came. Only once he said, "Sometimes, son, we have to run away from the life we built, just to hear ourselves again." I'd sit for hours watching the waves, thinking of my childhood, of when I first loved Sophia, of my kids, how little I truly knew them, of dying, of living, of what-ifs. And for the first time in years, I cried. No sobs, just quiet. endless tears. I started writing again, filling my journal each night, thoughts I'd suppressed for 20 years. I wrote not because I thought someone would read it, but because I didn't want to die with all these truths still locked inside. I called my doctor, registered for treatment at the local hospital. I emailed my HR department requesting a 1-month unpaid leave. They approved it quickly with nothing but support. No questions. Maybe they heard something in my voice, a quiet surrender. One afternoon, I stopped by an old bookstore. The owner, a kind black woman with silver hair, handed me a worn Bible with a faded cover. "You need space," she said, "but you also need something to anchor you." I thanked her. That night, I opened to a page that read, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, I slept through the night. I had been in Cambria for nearly 3 weeks. Sophia hadn't called, not once. No texts, no emails, no messages from the kids. Perhaps they thought I was sulking, or maybe they simply didn't care. I kept my phone charged, waiting, not for an apology, just acknowledgement. But the silence was deafening, until one Saturday morning when a message finally came in from Emma. "Mr. Matthew, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to snoop, but today Ms. Sophia was going through your study. She found your medical records." I froze in the kitchen, a cup of tea in my hand turning cold. Later that day, my phone rang. The name on the screen, Sophia. I hesitated, then answered. "Matthew," she began, calm, too calm. "I can't believe you kept something like this from me. Cancer. How long were you planning to hide this from your wife?" I stayed silent. She continued, "If I hadn't gone looking for our insurance papers, I never would have known. Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me?" "Because you never stopped long enough to listen," I said, voice flat. "You care about the card limits, not the pulse behind them." "Don't you dare moralize me," she snapped. "You do realize that if anything happens to you, your assets could fall into the wrong hands, right?" And there it was. Not fear, not grief, just calculation. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing control. Emma called again later that night. Her voice trembled. "She's not grieving, Mr. Matthew. She's strategizing. I overheard her on the phone. She's calling her lawyer." 3 days later, an email arrived. A scanned copy of a divorce petition, filed by Sophia. Grounds, irreconcilable differences. But she didn't need to explain. I understood. She wasn't just giving up on our marriage. She was cutting me loose before my illness became her problem. Then came the second email, from the bank. "Your joint savings account has been fully withdrawn, as per the authorized request dated yesterday." My hands went numb. I logged into our investment account, our retirement plan, our kids' college fund. I had foolishly signed power of attorney for joint management years ago, a gesture of trust, of love. She had emptied those too. That night, she called again. "Matthew, don't take it personally," she said, as if we were discussing a broken lease. "I'm just doing what's necessary. You should focus on your health. I'll handle the rest." "The kids?" I asked. "You can keep them," she replied without missing a beat. "I don't have time to play house." I hung up. The cabin felt colder than it had ever been. I stared at the file, black ink on white paper, CT scans, treatment protocols, surgery plans. But none of it hurt more than the realization that the woman I once vowed to love wasn't trying to survive my death. She was betting on it. I returned home after more than a month away. Not because I missed Sophia, but because of my kids. When I pulled into the driveway, the grass was overgrown. The white picket fence I once painted with Ethan had a missing slat. and the mailbox was stuffed with unpaid bills and collection notices. The house, my pride, our home, felt like a shell. Inside, the white leather sofa was still there, but dusty. Picture frames on the mantel remained, though Sophia had removed herself from most of them, not just physically, but surgically, gone from our life as if she'd never been part of it. Emma answered the door. Her eyes were red, rimmed with worry. "She left," she said softly. "Yesterday." "Left?" I echoed. "She packed everything during the night, took her clothes, jewelry, paperwork, and 2 tickets. She paused. "With Lucas." I walked into our bedroom, empty, the closet ransacked, the jewelry box gutted. Her signature scent still hung faintly in the air, not perfume anymore, but the residue of absence. I wandered into the kids' rooms. Both were sleeping in Emma's room, on a shared mattress she had laid out to keep them close. Emma, who had no obligation, who was paid by the hour, was still here, protecting what was left. The next morning I called my lawyer. Sophia had filed for divorce. In the petition she demanded a 70-30 asset split, claiming I had abandoned the household and failed to meet marital obligations. It would have been laughable if it weren't so cruel. But the most stunning part? She renounced custody of our children. At the bottom of the legal document was her own signature and the line, "I am unable and unwilling to take responsibility for the children. I request the court to award full custody to the father." No remorse, no hesitation, no love, just, "I don't want them." The day we went to court, she arrived in a clean white dress, her hair sleek, her lips crimson, hiding behind dark sunglasses like a celebrity leaving a scandal. She smiled at me, not warmly, just politely, like we were distant acquaintances meeting at a charity gala. I, on the other hand, wore a wrinkled shirt, unshaven face, and carried a folder stuffed with my treatment records and our kids' school notes. When the judge asked if she wished to speak about custody, she simply shook her head and shrugged. "He's better at it than I am. I've moved on." After the hearing, I sat in the waiting area staring through the glass at Ethan and Lila. Ethan fidgeted with a pen. Lila clung to the hem of her dress, her eyes puffy, silent since that morning. They didn't fully understand what was happening, and I couldn't explain it. How do you explain that the woman who brought them into the world just didn't want them anymore? That night, I didn't cry. I cooked dinner, spaghetti, something Sophia never once made. The kids ate quietly but finished every bite. Emma washed the dishes. I wrote my treatment schedule on the whiteboard above the fridge. When I tucked them in, Lila whispered, "Will Mommy ever come back?" I held her close, kissed her forehead, and said what I knew was true. She left, but I won't. And Ethan, standing by the door, added quietly, "We don't need her, Dad, not if we've got each other." After Sophia left, the house became strangely quiet. No more stiletto heels clicking across the hardwood. No more video calls echoing with false laughter. No more perfume masking absence. Instead, there was the gentle clinking of silverware in the early morning, the rustle of blankets being tucked in, and the soft giggles of children rediscovering peace. There was Emma. Emma, the woman who had once been just the help, became the unshakable center of our lives. She never asked for credit, never demanded gratitude. She simply stayed. She made breakfast, took the kids to school, sorted my medical bills, washed the linens every Sunday. But it wasn't her chores that changed us. It was her presence, unyielding, quiet, steady. I remember the first time she held my hand. It wasn't romantic, it was urgent. I had collapsed in the shower after my first round of treatment. My blood sugar plummeted. I awoke in the hospital with her at my bedside, eyes swollen from holding back panic. "You don't have to do everything alone anymore," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "I'm here now." I had once believed my heart had closed for good, but Emma never pushed it open. She waited. She never asked if I still believed in love. She asked, "Did you eat today? Do you want me to drive you tomorrow? Can you read the kids their bedtime story tonight?" It was in those questions, so small, so mundane, that something deeper began to grow. Not a fire, a flame. Lila began calling her mom. No one prompted it. She just did. Because to her, Emma wasn't a replacement. She was a rescuer. Ethan took longer. He watched her carefully. He kept his distance. But little by little, he let her in. First by telling her about a new friend at school, then by letting her bandage a scrape on his knee. One day, while Emma packed his lunch, he said quietly, "You make it better than she did." Emma smiled, blinked back tears, and kissed his head. As for me, I began to heal, not just physically, but spiritually. My body responded well to treatment, new targeted therapies, cutting-edge medications. My doctor used the phrase, "strong prognosis," which to me felt like the sweetest words I'd heard in a long time. The company I had given years to surprised me by offering full support, covering all treatment costs, granting me paid medical leave, and even sending a handwritten letter from the CEO, thanking me for my dedication. I didn't need a medal, but that letter, it reminded me I mattered, not for my paycheck, but for who I'd been when no one was watching. I returned to painting. Years ago, I had loved art, but I'd stopped when life got loud, when Sophia mocked it, when responsibilities piled up, when I forgot how to dream. Now, at night, when the house fell still, I picked up a brush again. I painted the kids. I painted our backyard at dusk. I painted Emma's hands in the kitchen. And one night, I painted her face, lit by the warm glow of our kitchen lamp. Eyes focused, posture graceful, unaware of how beautiful she was in that moment. She looked at the canvas and asked, "Why do I look like a warrior?" I smiled, "Because you saved us." Sophia vanished from our lives as if she had never been part of them. No texts, no calls, no birthday cards for the kids, not even a lawyer's courtesy follow-up. She had boarded a jet to Miami with Lucas, the crypto investor darling of social media, a man with a golden smile and a digital fortune built on buzzwords. Her Instagram told a perfect lie. Yachts, champagne brunches, silk gowns, a new designer purse every week, each post captioned with little jabs, "Life begins when you choose yourself." A woman should never love a man, only an investment. She wasn't grieving, she was thriving, at least on the outside. But lies unravel. Word began to spread on the private investment forums. Lucas, the man Sophia had trusted with everything, was running a massive pump-and-dump crypto scam through a project called Zenith Block, a sleek white paper, dozens of slick pitch decks, exclusive inner circle webinars. He promised Sophia that Zenith Block was the future, so she bet everything. The savings she took from me, the investment portfolio she drained, even the inheritance fund I had quietly set aside for the kids. All of it. $3.2 million. Gone. 3 months later, Lucas disappeared. The office in Miami, vacant. The website, offline. The investor portal, under maintenance. Last known transaction, a one-way flight from JFK to the Cayman Islands. Sophia was left with nothing but screenshots of promises and a portfolio full of worthless coins. Then, one rainy afternoon, she appeared at our door. No warning, no shame. She was no longer the woman who left us, glamorous and smug. Now she stood with mascara streaked down her cheeks, designer heels waterlogged, a handbag that once screamed luxury now sagging with defeat. "Matthew," she said. Her voice cracked. "Can we talk?" I stood under the porch roof, arms crossed. Emma stood behind me, silent. Sophia's hands trembled. "I need help. Just enough to start over. He took everything." "I warned you," I replied calmly. "He didn't love you. He used you, much like how you used me." She blinked, but there were no protests, just desperation. "I don't want your pity," she whispered, "just maybe my share of the house. I gave up everything." I handed her a printed copy of the divorce decree, her signature highlighted in bold. She had forfeited all property claims, voluntarily. I tilted my head. "This house is not an asset. It's our kids' home, and you left it." She stood there, soaked, for a long time. I didn't feel cruel. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty, like watching someone bury their own future and show up asking for flowers. "I hope you find peace," I said, stepping back inside. "And if you ever find the version of yourself that once knew how to love, tell her I'm doing just fine without her." That night, I told Emma and the kids. Ethan just nodded. "I don't hate her," he said, "but she's not my mom anymore." Lila, cuddled in Emma's arms, whispered, "Can you stay with us forever, Mommy Emma?" Emma didn't speak. She just held them tighter. The following spring, I completed my treatment. The tumor had stopped growing. Blood markers normalized. Scans showed stability. The doctor used the phrase long-term remission. It wasn't a promise, but it was a second chance. I stepped out of the hospital into the San Diego sunlight. Emma's hand wrapped gently in mine. No vows, no performance, just presence. She had stayed. That meant everything. The months that followed were not about rebuilding what I had lost. They were about building something better from the ground up. We repainted the house, not for curb appeal, but for joy. I let the kids pick the colors. Ethan chose navy blue. Lila chose pastel pink with clouds. Emma planted lavender under the windows. Every morning the scent filled the kitchen. It smelled like safety. I stopped going to the office every day. I transitioned to a consulting role, just a few hours a week on my own terms. I spent the rest of my time painting again. I painted Lila in the backyard chasing butterflies. I painted Ethan on the porch, sketching superheroes. I painted Emma's hands, baking, folding laundry, brushing hair, acts of devotion more sacred than any sermon. One night, I painted her sitting at the kitchen table, bathed in warm light, eyes focused, unaware of her beauty. She looked at the portrait and asked, "Why do I look like I'm glowing?" I smiled. "Because you brought light back." I uploaded that portrait to an online gallery. To my surprise, it went viral. One art magazine called it "The Quiet Triumph of an Ordinary Man." They called to interview me. I declined. I didn't paint for the world. I painted because my world had become worth capturing. On Sundays, we had picnics by the beach. Emma would lay out a blanket and pass out sandwiches. Ethan kicked a soccer ball across the sand. Lila buried seashells like they were treasure. I'd lie back on the grass and close my eyes. No Sophia, no Lucas, no shadows of illness hanging over me like a noose. Just wind, sunlight, and the sound of children laughing, the sound of life continuing on our terms. One evening, as we watched the sunset, Ethan leaned into me. "Dad," he said, "you seem happy again." I looked at him, this boy who had seen too much too young, and nodded. "I am." Lila curled up on Emma's lap and asked, "Can we stay like this forever?" Emma didn't answer with words. She kissed Lila's forehead. That was enough. Later that night, after the kids had gone to bed, I turned to Emma at the kitchen sink. "I used to think I had nothing left to give," I said quietly. She dried her hands and looked at me, not with pity, not with admiration, but with truth. You gave us everything, a home, your kindness, your heart. That's more than most people ever give in a lifetime. I no longer needed a wedding, or a title, or a social media post to validate our love. I had Emma, I had our children, I had my life, and it was enough. The cost of betrayal is bitter isolation, but the reward of grace is a life you don't have to fight for anymore. I am Matthew Reynolds, a former husband, a present father, a man who finally chose peace.